Welcome to my realm. This is Tammy Jordan, and you're lucky enough to be listening to Butterfly Days. Today, we have an extraordinary guest that I'm very excited to bring to you and to let you hear some of the wisdom that she has to share. You know that on Butterfly Days, we are trying to support women in lots of different spaces in life. And some of them are not comfortable. And we're going to have honest talks and provide different frameworks to think about things and resources that are possible to support you. This is one of those discussions. My guest today is Hanna Morrell. She is a trauma informed financial coach in Eugene, Oregon. And today she's going to talk to us about a range of issues, but specifically financial enmeshment with adult children. It's becoming more of an issue and it's coming to the forefront. And even as I said it, there are women out there whose stomachs just clenched and think, oh, it has a name, so let's talk about it. Welcome to my realm. I'm Tammy Jordan, and this is Butterfly Days, the podcast that proves you're not past your prime. You're living in it right now because women don't have expiration dates. Butterfly Days is a celebration of the extraordinary potential of Gen X and Boomer women. Throughout history, women have shared wisdom to uplift and empower one another. And you're about to learn hard-earned wisdom and best-kept secrets from interesting, inspiring women. So if you're ready to embrace your butterfly season with confidence, find joy in the present, and create a legacy that matters, you're in the right place. No more holding back. Let's spread our wings now. Here we go. Hanna, what would you tell us about it? What is financial enmeshment with adult children?
To answer that, I'm going to give you its alternate name. And this is gross, so just hang in there with me. It's called financial incest.
Ew.
Ew, super gross, right? And the reason that is such a visceral sort of, everybody has an icky reaction to that is because it means that one or more boundaries have been crossed. So if you think about, that's what incest is, like if you think about financial enmeshment being that same sort of, like this is the simplest possible way to define it, is that one or more boundaries have been crossed. What those boundaries are, how they've been crossed, that's very, very, or why this is happening is as varied as families are. So,
Wow, boundaries, an inappropriate boundary violation.
oh yeah.
Well, I guess any boundary violation is inappropriate, and it's that simple. So, how does it play out? Like, give me an example of what you commonly hear or you are seeing.
Very often, especially women our age, couples our age. So let's say early on in life, when our kids were little bitty, we had to tell that kid no. Not because we wanted to, but because we couldn't do it. Like I remember my little kid's face at about 4 or 5 when I had to say no, and that heartbroken little face. My gosh,
Oh,
right? So what happens is that later in life, like at this point in our lives, I'm Gen X as well. At this point in our lives, we're probably earning as much as we're ever going to earn. We're way more
hmm,
stable. Our risks have come down. Our liabilities have come down somewhat. So for some of us, we're probably a whole lot more stable. So one of the things that can happen is that now our kids are going through their 20s, and we know how rough that is. And we can fall into the trap of making up for lost time, right? I had to say no to you when you were 5, so I'm going to say yes to you now. And that guilt is
oh,
one of there's like, I think I could talk about 12 different reasons for this, and it's never one of them. It's always kind of a commingling of these reasons, but that is one of the most common
yeah.
ones. And that starts that slippery slope, right? Where then the kids can get into, not through any fault of their own, kind of an expectation. Like, mama is going to help me. I work with people almost all over the age spectrum. Don't work with a bunch of boomers. I have a couple. But with the younger kids, I hear them say, I can always fall back on my parents. And I don't say this to them because that's not my place. I'm like thinking about it from about their parents' generation. I'm like, oh, right? It's so easy to fall. It's not that kids are doing anything wrong. It's not that they're taking advantage. It's just sort of a natural sort of assumption that mama's going to take care of me. And I mean,
Yeah.
we want our
Yeah.
kids to see us that way, but that is where the enmeshment can begin. So that's one of the aspects, is that kind of guilt that we
Yeah.
came with. Yeah, I could keep talking about different
Yeah,
reasons, but
please do. So there could be guilt from when they were younger that you want to make up for something.
yeah, there's wanting to make their lives better than ours. I think we've all kind of been told that. My parents told me that I want to make your life better than mine, and so of course the expectation rolls down here. And of course, and that's like number two, kind of. Number three would be that we're concerned about our grandkids, and this is where codependency can start to kick in. It's like we don't want
Mm,
our grandkids to be suffering because
yeah,
they're the most amazing things ever.
sure.
So
Yeah.
that will do just about anything for those babies. So, like I said, that's like there. It's a myriad of reasons. It's what the nerds would call multifactorial. There's almost never just one thing. And on the outside, this doesn't. I don't see this too often. Is the I need to make sure you're okay now, so you can take care of me when I'm old.
Oh,
Yeah, and this is related to something called filial piety, where it's your job to take care of future generations. I'm sorry,
yes.
switch that around. Your job to take care of the generation before you. And
Yes.
it's,
Ancestor. Yeah.
uh, there again, there's that unspoken expectation, kind of a demand that we're going to take care of our parents. They did it, their parents before them, even though nobody ever asked us if that's what we want. But like we can roll
Yeah.
that downhill sort of in a inverted sort of a way. Say like, I'm going to take care of you now, but you're going to take care of me later. And that transactional
Right.
nature of the relationship can be very damaging.
Wow. I'm struck by your usage of the word transactional. And I just wonder what the emotional fallout from, it's one thing to know probably that's how it's going to go down is there's a certain amount of I'm taking care of you while you're young and you'll probably help me as we get older. But that's not quite what you're saying. You're talking an expectation and the initial care rendered solely so you can get something back on the back end. Little different. How does that play out emotionally for the kids at least? For people having it done to them, a parent who's
Hmm. Resentment. And that's one of the common themes that I see a lot when it comes to financial enmeshment is it doesn't matter which direction you're going. Everybody has a reason to feel resentful, a good reason.
oh, because it's not healthy in the first place, so it leaves everybody participating not fulfilled.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
Nobody feels safe.
Nobody feels safe. Yeah. And why do they not feel safe?
Because one of the things, and this is so weird about our species, like we desperately need connection with other humans, but we also sort of resent that because anytime we are dependent, which is the first way that we experience care, anytime we're dependent, it removes our autonomy. And we resent that because every living thing, my little cat resents if I remove her autonomy with air jail or something. Right? So we want both of those things. We want our autonomy, but we also want to feel cared for. And very often, dependency, enmeshment, those kinds of things are a stand in for care. And it becomes sort of an unspoken, that's part of the expectation. I couldn't care for you when you were little bitty, so I'm caring for you now by paying your rent. Right? I was expected to care for my parents in this way, so I'm expecting you to care for me in that way. And that's not, none of those things are care. We kind of get those things tangled up in our heads.
Yeah, with expectations versus genuine care. Care rendered is emotionally authentic and it comes from a motive of kindness and respect for the good of the other and not just for what we will get out of it.
Yeah, but those those two things are conflated quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a very good point. So I'm thinking about, I have a myriad of thoughts. First of all, I'm wondering, do adult children whose parents go too far in continuing to support them financially? So I'm looking at this angle now. Do those adult children, by and large, do you see them being grateful for it, or do you see them feeling resentful, like you don't think I can do it? Or where does that usually land?
Kind of a little bit of everything. We're way too complex for like this is the response. Well, I've seen adult children who are being, and by the way, I've seen adult children being supported by their, I've seen Gen X adult children being supported by their boomer parents. Don't, yeah. And so, don't, yeah, 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 yeah. So it could be resentment,
Podcast
but I don't,
people, I had a big open mouth on that.
yeah, it can be resentment, but also at the same time gratitude and understanding like I wouldn't have made it through last year without you. But it can
Yes,
also be
yes.
expectation and like I am owed this. So it can run the gamut, and in one conversation, like this can it can flip around, right? So it's not we're not all one thing. And I always think it's a little dangerous for me to kind of approach it like, oh, you're just resentful or you're just entitled. It's not, it's, and it can be really easy to see other people from that one perspective. Like you're
Yeah.
only entitled. And it's, we are way too messy and beautiful and complicated for that. But yeah, I see resentment. I see gratitude, and I do see an expectation.
Yeah. I'm wondering if caring for a functional adult so that they never, because you know what? Here's what I'm thinking. When we're in our 20s, it is the time to struggle to make a living because that's building muscles. It's like the chick breaking out of the eggshell, that you need the process of coming out to be strong enough once you're out. So I'm thinking to myself, making sure that your children never suffer for just as long as possible into the 20s, 30s, whatever. Are we doing them a disservice in the same way because we're not allowing them to develop emotional musculature there?
I'm not sure. I think it would depend, but I would say probably I wish I could still remember the name of the person who said this. But he was an immigrant, started with, the classic story, $27 in his pocket, ended up being a
Hmm.
multi-billionaire. And they said
Wow.
the one thing he could never give his kids was the struggle, right? He was not ever going to be able to give that to them. So I think that is an important aspect. I don't think that's the whole story. I don't think we should make people suffer to help to have them learn. That's called punishment. That does not help us learn. We've known this from behavioral sciences and neuroscience that punishment does not help us learn. So I don't think it's that. I think really the counterpoint to this would be the interconnectedness of being able to have a conversation with our grown kids, and in a
Yeah.
comfortable and safe way. And that is maybe one of the things that's underlying all of this is that as a culture, we are not given tools to talk about money. We don't know how to do that. Um,
Ooh, tell me about that.
yeah, I don't know, Tammy, if this is how you were brought up, but I was brought up in a culture, not just my family, but like in a larger like community, that there's a couple things you don't talk about. Money, sex, and politics. We've since let go
Yep.
of the politics thing. We seem to be real comfortable talking about that.
Yeah.
um,
Sadly.
But talking about money is a skill, and it is not a skill that we have passed down because how could you? You can't pass down, you
Yeah.
can't teach somebody else a tool you don't have.
You
I have
didn't
taught my
have.
parents tools for talking about money because they didn't have that tool. They couldn't teach it to me. And that's not on them, right? We know what generational trauma is, but we also know what generational financial trauma is. And talking about money is weird because money is our only resource. If you want an education, days off, fuzzy socks, food, cat food, if you want things, you have to have money the way that this economy works. Money is our only resource, and our brains know this. Talking about resources, resource management, our brains take this very, very seriously. So that's when
Yes.
we get dysregulated very quickly when we talk about money. We can like, this
Mm.
is the end of the world. How am I ever going to retire? How am I going to pay off my house? How am I going to be retired and having to work into my 70s and still not have a paid off house and have debt. And because I'm trying to care, even though, like we talked about, there's a distinction here between care and enmeshment. So yeah,
Yeah.
we don't have good tools. I do. Sorry.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Had to
Yeah.
pitch.
And Hannah can help us. Hannah's
And
going
has
to
good
tell us
tools
in
for
just a minute how you can get some of those good tools. I love that. Yeah. I'm just thinking to myself, you're right. We don't have, many of us don't have great language for talking about financial things. And as a result, probably haven't taught our kids that.
Sure.
So I'm thinking about that, but I'm also thinking about how there's a certain amount of, in my peer group, I would say most of us have done better than how we grew up. And we sort of want our kids to be able to continue at the level that we've gotten to. But with enmeshment, I'm worried that that bridge too far means that we are risking healthy retirement expectations, and having never, I've always felt bad about it and never learned to talk about it. Aren't we bumping into a lot of issues there?
We can't win, right? Like we are the last generation that kind of had the expectation that you work for 40 years and then you retire for 20 and die. Like that, like millennials and Gen Z, they don't have that. Retirement's going to look very different for them because the world
Yeah,
that they live in is very different than ours,
changed. Yeah.
right? We are at a pinch point where some of us, myself included, are caring for or prepping to care for our boomer parents, while caring for, in whatever way that looks like, at least being concerned for our millennial and Gen Z children. And then, of course, whatever Gen Z and Gen Alpha grandchildren in there too, with an economy that is exceptionally different than when we were just 30 years ago, right? Just
Yeah.
everything from housing to higher education, it's a different world. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're watching our kids suffer because it's been a big change, but also like suffering ourselves. And like, I assume most of your audience is women. So I feel pretty comfortable in saying this is like some of the messaging that we received as kids is that it is our job to sacrifice. What is the point of us if not to sacrifice what we
Whoa.
want for others? Like I loud and clear, I think most of us Gen X women receive the message that what you want is not important. In fact, if you
Or
want
it's
something that is,
second.
yeah, yeah, the reason, if you want something, you desire something, then that's the reason you should not have it. So have it. So
Mm,
what we do automatically without, but this is not a choice and that's not a personality defect, is we rebel, right? So that's the resentment and the
mhm.
rebellion coming back in. So it feels like no matter what we do, we can't make the right choice, right? That it is.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm bumming everybody out. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know, like this.
No, 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 no. No,
It's
this is
huge.
good. I mean, if we don't talk about these things, Hannah, we're not going to get we're not going to get better at it. And I think my audience is coming to this hoping that you can share ideas and resources and frameworks so that they can think about, I mean, because if you're struggling right now with that and there's a part of you that knows I'm gonna have to quit this level of support soon because I can't sustain it. Or God help you, I'm already into the point where I'm not sustaining
Your
my
body makes a
retirement.
choice for you. Yep.
Yes, yes. But I love what you said. A lot of us really struggle with, or feel guilty about, certainly at the least, that we're not sacrificing so everybody else is at least at our level. Like the guilt of that is real, whether or not it's necessary, valid, or important.
Right. It's been sort of like stitched into our DNA along the way.
Yeah.
And whether we comply with that compulsion to care for everybody around us and make everybody as good or better than we are, or not, we're probably going to get hit with some guilt. And that's kind of finding out what's going on underneath there is kind of the first step to resolving this.
Mm.
Um, and that is understanding of what is going on in your head without judgment, without shame, just sort of beginning to understand the messaging that you've received for literally your entire life. It's your tiny
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So, if you are concerned that two things, either you are perhaps moving into or are financially enmeshed with children, or you are concerned, I am floating in waters headed for that waterfall. What what's good to understand? What are steps that women can take to get a better outcome that's healthier for everybody involved?
Yeah. I'm going to speak very generally because everybody's pathway is different, of course.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but I do think it starts with self-awareness. I think it starts with that self-awareness without judgment. I need to be super clear about that. I've never had to teach anybody how to be self-aware with judgment. We're all very good at that. But being self-aware of like beginning to understand, like, where did I get this message from? And I have a whole framework we can talk about for the stories that we have in our heads.
Yeah, yeah. Tell us about that. Because you know what? I think we have women that just really want to understand, how am I locked in this prison? Or I'm stuck on this boat headed to what I can see as a falls ahead.
Let me back up a little bit and break something down really quickly. This is a
Sure.
vast oversimplification, but we can kind of think about financial concerns and financial tools in two different buckets. One is system. So this is like, I can't get my spreadsheet to do the thing I want it to do. What's the best strategy for me for debt payoff? For system concerns, we need system tools, spreadsheets, strategies, that kind of a thing. The other side of thing is relationship. So this is not just our relationship to money, but our like familiar relationship with money, my relationship to my kids around money, that kind of a thing. What happens is we have a relationship concern. A financial enmeshment is a fantastic example of a relationship concern. And what people do is they try to fix it with a system. Here's your budget, you're going to stick to it. Here's my budget, I'm going to stick to it. So, as my dad would say, that's the wrong tool for the job. You can't fix a relationship concern with a system tool.
Oh gosh, what a great point. You can't fix a relationship problem with a tool, and you can't fix a tool using relationship. Is that correct? Would it be
You can't fix a
converse?
relationship concern with a system tool.
Yes, there we go.
You can't, and nobody tries to do this. You can't fix a
Yeah.
system concern with a relationship tool. People just don't do that because it's not the first thing we think of. So financial
Yeah.
enmeshment is a relationship concern. It looks like dollars. It looks like numbers. It looks like, and I've heard this a million times, it's just numbers. I'm like, it's not. Not
It's
this.
not
Not this.
not that.
This is a
Good girl.
relationship
That's a
concern.
great point. So if you're struggling with it, yeah, it's money, but it's more than that. It's how you think about the story you're telling yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And beginning to so you start there on the relationship side. And of course it squishes over eventually, but
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So what kind of stories, like, help me out with that part. What might we be thinking? What kind of story? Because the story that you tell yourself will tell you. It will lead you
yes. Oh my
forward
gosh,
in what
yes.
happens.
Yeah, that's it. The understanding the stories, the narratives that fold into our brains over the decades is deeply, deeply important. So I use a framework called SPACE. It's an acronym. So the S stands for the story. So sometimes my clients and I can get a hold of the story itself. The story itself would be like, I'm just going to tell you mine real quick. Imagine me, 19 years old. I marched myself into the bank a year before, just days after I turned 18. I put $100 in a CD. Very grown up of me. Thank you very much.
Go girl.
Very grown up. So
It
I'm
was.
19. I've spent a year doing some very careful but very incorrect math about how much I'm going to get back from that CD. I've already emotionally and mentally spent all that money. I'm
Oh
expecting to
yeah,
get
you
about
have.
$300 back. You can, this is, so
It's not
the
going to
banker
go well.
nope, nothing. The banker slides me $107. And I said in the way that only a 19-year-old can, this isn't right. That's not what I was expecting. And she kind of rolled her eyes and like, that's not how this works. So That's the story. And sometimes we can get a hold of the story.
Yes.
Sometimes we can't. If you can't get the story itself, the actual experience, who was there, how you felt at the time, if you can't get that, get me the story of the story. And the story of the story is sometimes more important. The story of the story for me was that I'm an idiot. I'm an
No,
idiot.
you're just young. You're young. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So I get that. And thank you for pushing back on my story. But like, this is how we reinforce these stories, right?
Yes.
That's what I learned. And because I didn't have the tools then, and not till I was in my 40s did I have the tools to talk about that. The message I received was I was an idiot. I should have known better somehow magically, but then I had this story reinforced for me over the decades, right? That is what happens. So the story of the story is I'm an idiot. And we cannot push back on that story because of the P part of the space framework. These stories are trying desperately to protect us. The story of I'm an idiot.
You're going to make me cry. It keeps you from making another mistake. It's not a good tool, but it
It's
will
not good at its
work.
job, yeah. But that's what it's trying desperately to do, right? So
Yeah.
because this is in my, I'm so sorry. I'm
You
starting to
did
tear
no,
too.
you did a really good job of illustrating that because I just think lots of people have lots of stories about lots of issues and they may or may not be financial, but they don't realize that that judgment was to protect them.
It's trying to, right?
It's
That's
trying to.
it's
Yeah,
trying to. This is
ineffectively,
real,
but
right? But that's why we can't push back on the story because if you push back on that story, you're pushing back on a protective strategy. And if we try to take
sure,
away a protective strategy, what's going to happen? I'm not going to be
you're wide open. That's not
I'm
good.
not
Yeah,
protected, right? So yes, these protective strategies are quite terrible at their job, but that doesn't matter. This is my protective strategies, and I'm an idiot. So I'm not going to take any risks, right? I'm not going to put myself out there. I certainly should know better, but I don't know how to do that, so I'm not even going to try because what's the point? So
yeah,
this, of course, I reinforce this through my own decisions. And because it's a protective strategy, I'm going to use something called confirmation bias. And I'm looking for things that reinforce my protective strategy, which just makes it stronger and stronger and stronger.
yep,
So the P in space is what is the protective strategy? What is this story trying to protect you from? For me, it's trying to protect me from risk, right? Taking undue risks, putting myself out there unnecessarily. So the A stands for aftermath. If we're going to appreciate and respect that there's a protective strategy here, we also need to look at like, okay, so what's actually happening? So A is
yeah,
for aftermath or actual. What has this protective strategy cost me? And what it's cost me, of course, is my own good evaluation of myself. But it's also,
yeah.
it's in the past tense for me, of course. It has cost me staying in relationships and jobs for far too long because I couldn't muster the resilience to step out. It probably cost me from looking at things. I kind of think of myself prior to the age of about 43 as a zombie when it comes to finances, just kind of moving through the world, didn't really know what was going on because, of course, it hurts to look at those things. So it kept me in the dark. It kept me sort of moving through the world as an automaton. And it kept me in relationships and situations that were not of service to me. So that's what it cost me. So if you're going to do the protective strategy and respecting that, then kind of also need to do this second part. And over and over and over again, and this is what I find so fascinating about this framework, is that ironically, these stories, these narratives end up resulting in the thing we are trying desperately to protect ourselves from. So I'm constantly feeling like a failure, right?
Sure.
Everything I do is risky. Moving, changing jobs, buying clothes, buying groceries, everything I do feels like a risk because
Yeah.
I can't make any correct choices.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So that's the aftermath. That's the SPA. So right there, if we stop there and I just did SPA as my framework, this would be great, right? So right here,
Sure.
we have lots. We have plenty to work with, but it's the C, which stands for connection or community. Now it's time to tell that story. So telling and retelling these stories, writing it down, like folks who are listening, literally write your story down. It's therapeutic, it's impactful. You can write it down as many times as you want. Every time we write it down, every time we tell this story, it changes. This is remapping. Just by telling a story, we change it. So let's say I'm having coffee with my best friend.
Wow.
Yeah, it changes every single time.
Just by telling our story, we remap it. Whoa. That's such a level of control that we have that's we need to know we have it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the C is often easy for people to skip because, like we talked about, we have not been taught ways to talk about money. But the
Yeah,
SPA, the first three letters of the acronym, give us the framework to talk about it.
sure.
So let's say I'm having lunch with my best friend and I say something to her. See if you can pick out the SPA. I say to her, through all my life, I've kind of felt like an idiot when it comes to money. And of course, she's going to push back on that. She's going to give me her positive affirmations, which is why she's my best friend, right? Um, right. So she's going to push back, but I'm going to keep going. So that's just the story I've been telling myself. I don't have to tell her about the bank, right? I can tell her the story of the story. I've always felt like an idiot when it comes to money. I know that that story has been trying to protect me from taking undue risks, putting myself down, getting hurt, feeling like a failure. But what I've been recognizing lately is that the actual outcome of that is that I always feel like a failure. I'm constantly,
Yeah.
everything is a risk. Every little bitty choice that I make feels like a risk. And then I could say, so that was the SPA, if you're following along. Then I can ask her,
Yes.
do you ever feel like that?
Mm,
And then very likely she's going to say something like, yes. All right, right. I feel like that. And we're going to have, now we're having a conversation. We're doing the C, right? We're connecting with another person. We're building
yeah.
community and communicating around money.
Mm,
Or she can say, no, not that, but I do feel this, right? And now she's going to share her experiences. And I could teach her
mm,
space, the whole framework. But this is meant to be a conversation. So in some way or another, um, we need to begin sharing these stories. Who you
yeah.
share this with is super duper important. This has to be somebody safe, somebody who will not come at you with judgment, somebody who will not like try to correct you. This has to be somebody who is a positive, someone who you want to spend more time with. Don't just share this with everybody. I'm not saying we just go out there. Don't put unless you feel super
No, be
comfortable. Don't post this on
wise.
Facebook or
Sure.
Instagram. Like, be cautious
Yeah.
about how you're sharing with this, especially if it still hurts. Like for me, that story for me, that doesn't hurt at all. I tell that story all of the time. I could tell that one to strangers. It doesn't hurt, right? But that if it still has some tenderness to it, be very careful with who you're talking to.
Be discerning. That's an important part of personal boundaries, isn't it?
Yes, it is, right? And like, not everybody deserves to know that story.
Oh, not everybody deserves to know your story. Wow. I love that. I love that. Thank you.
My pleasure. Um, yeah. And so now we're on to the E in space, which is maybe harder than C. And this is expansion. And the idea here is that the story, the bank story for me, for a very long time, it never ended. That experience in the bank just never stopped. Like I was still
Mm,
experiencing that up till about 10 years ago. But expanding around it means that that event is now history. It is no
yeah.
longer impacting us. Expansion looks like for every person, this is going to be different. Even just writing out the story or telling your story is a form of expansion, but so is
Mm,
curiosity.
I love that. Tell me more. How does curiosity serve us for expansion?
Because we begin to ask questions like, what would my life look like if this story didn't have this negative impact on me? What would a story of me trusting myself with money, what would that look like? Even just asking that question counts as expansion. You don't need to have the answer for it.
Yeah. Yeah, just to ask the question, just to make a crack for the light to come in. Could I live in such a way that I no longer am bearing this sense of shame or obligation or that I am being punished because I am less than, not good enough, blah, blah, blah.
All the stuff. And that's very often what happens. Often what happened for me and what happens for almost everybody is that that cascade of stories comes billowing out of that. Maybe not
Mm,
immediately, but like I mean, we're talking specifically about enmeshment, but like if you start there, you're going to find other stories, stories on top of stories, stories within stories. And that's okay. Because like I said, we're all really, really complex and our brains are exceptionally fast and exceptionally good at layering things and hiding things from us. This is when I say awareness without judgment.
That's incredibly beautiful. And I'm thinking to myself, what I hear you saying is that most of the work to get to a healthier place beyond an enmeshed relationship begins with me owning my story.
Yeah. Being aware of that story and how it's impacting you. And then, like,
Hmm.
what we're after isn't codependence, dependency, or even hyper individuality. What we're after in our families is called interdependence. And can you imagine sitting down with your grown child and kind of talking about, like, I've been doing some thinking about this, and I think this is what's going on with me. This is why I respond this way, or I think why I respond this way when you do this. Like beginning to understand yourself first is kind of the only way. We can't keep pointing at the other person. Like I talked about, this is a relationship concern, not just your relationship with your kids, but your relationship with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's a lot of financial enmeshment. Of course, it's about a boundary violation with the child, but it's also a boundary violation with yourself and your lack of dignity, in making sure that you are caring for everybody in the relationship cycle.
Yeah. And being able to set and keep a boundary sounds super simple. It's not.
Hmm.
Well, one
If
thing we need
only.
for it's really, well, I'm right. If it was only that easy, being able to set and keep a boundary and to understand when to change a boundary or dissolve one,
Mm,
all of that requires trust in ourselves, which is the same as resilience. There's no difference between being able to trust ourselves and resilience. And you cannot do any boundary setting, keeping, changing, or stopping without being able to trust yourself. I think that people focus too much on the outside, the other, what the other person is doing, what the other party is doing,
yeah.
without any introspection onto what is going on. And I know I'm repeating myself and I'm doing this intentionally. This has to be self-awareness without judgment. Beating the snot out of yourself is not going to help. That worked, every single one of the people listening to this would have figured it out by now. Like, we'd all be fine right now.
Certainly.
If that worked, it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
I
So
love that shirt that says the beatings will continue until
until
morale
morale
improves.
improves.
Yeah.
I love that too because
It's,
of my last name, but yeah,
oh, yeah, that's true.
it's slight
Morale,
fun. Yeah.
morale.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm so fascinated by the realization that what I had not thought about enough is that if you want to change this dynamic with enmeshed children, it begins first in your own heart, in your own mind, in being clear about what you're doing, and then choosing language to be able to convey to them, this is why this
hmm
isn't working. I do respect you. I care greatly about what happens, but let's have an adult conversation here. Does that tend to be hard if enmeshment's already an issue?
Yes. Yeah. This will
Mm.
not be a wave the magic wand, it's all fixed now kind of a
A
thing.
one and done?
Sorry, guys. That's not the way it works, right? This has been our own, when we are predisposed to this enmeshment, this is generations rolling up on us. This isn't just your lifetime. This is your grandparents. And this is, like we talked about, there is such a thing as generational trauma and generational financial
Yes.
trauma. This will not be fixed with one conversation. This takes time. Less time than you might imagine, but it does
Mm.
take some time. Really, what I've seen happen is like families come together, they have this conversation. Once or twice I've been part of this conversation, like mediating this conversation, but very often not. Like it's something that I've been working with on either the parent side or the grown children side to develop these tools. And they start the conversation ends in tears and hugs, everybody's
Mm.
happy, and then they go right back into the same dynamic. And I'm sorry, guys, but that's just kind of the way that our brains, these pathways of that dynamic, whatever that enmeshment dynamic looks like with your family, That is
Mm-hmm.
a 8-lane, beautifully paved highway that you can go 100 miles an hour on. And I'm asking you
Yep.
to bushwhack,
Neural highway.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm asking you to
And
create a new pathway. Yeah.
if there is financial enmeshment, am I to understand from that that highly likely it's not the only form of enmeshment that's happening in a family?
Sometimes, sometimes in some families, the money takes is like the placeholder for all care. And so that it can be hyper.
Oh,
Yeah, there is no other form of care. Um, and again, I want to be super clear that financial enmeshment is not a kind of care, but it's attempting to be that,
mm-hmm.
signal that, or be that. And for
Yeah.
some families, it's not. It's like there's a million other ways that they show care for each other. That this
Yeah.
is just an element of their relationship. And for some people, this is all of their relationship. So it just,
It's their language. Yeah. So you realize I'm in deep kimchi here. Uh I've been not having proper boundaries with these really good-looking, successful, beautiful, perfect children that I have born. And I am gonna do my darndest to get stabilized because I know that I've got to take care of myself for many more years, for instance, than my parents did. And I want to be able to do that. So, does it help to get more information or better understanding of budgeting or finances? Once you realize what your story is, do any of the tools that we talked about earlier, do they now come into play? I
the,
bet everybody's
yeah.
individual, but
It's, yeah, again, most people want to go directly, like, okay, I got the story. I did this face thing, like Hannah said. Now they switch right over to
yay
those
me.
system tools. I'm going to really encourage folks to hold off on the system tools, the system side of things, the budgeting, the
Yeah.
agreements, the accountability, that kind of a thing. Hold off on that for longer than you think is necessary. That's what I said, that there's a rebound effect here, is because like we had the conversation, there was hugging and crying. And then the expectation is, okay, let's work on an agreement. Let's put together like an actual written contract. That's a system tool. We still have relationship concerns. We have to basically rebuild this relationship before you can work on the system
Mm,
concerns. Um, that, yes. So do people do that? Yes, absolutely. Am I encouraging you to
yeah.
slow down? There is no, there's no one correct pathway for this. But I will say staying with the relationship concern, staying with the relationship tools for longer than you think is necessary is good. And encouraging them, right? Not demanding, not requiring, not holding them accountable, but like, you start doing this work, you model this work, it makes it easier for them to do that too. But yes, eventually it's time to talk about, but the system talk is very different. This is how you'll know if the relationship work is going well. It's never ending, of course. Is like, if
Okay.
when you return to the system talk, it goes back to exactly the same way it's been, then it was, we didn't spend long enough on the relationship side. If you return to the
That's a
system
great
talk,
tip.
yeah. If you return to the system stuff and it's changed entirely, that conversation around dollars, then you're doing good. Keep going on the relationship side.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest
Yeah.
with you, sometimes the system conversation never happens because it's resolved.
Oh. Oh, you don't even need to get there because the healthiness of each party begins to naturally shift the imbalance of power. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Sometimes it's, and not every time, of course. And like I said, sometimes I'm working on both sides of this, and sometimes both sides of the same family. Like, sometimes we'll never return to the system conversation because it's unnecessary. The conflict is
Right.
resolved because the conflict was all on the relationship side. Um, it
Yeah.
wasn't ever about the finances, but sometimes it does.
Wow. Wow. Listen, people are going to roll on the floor when they know that I spoke with someone today on financial issues because I do have a husband who has said to me for over a quarter of a century, honey, don't do math in your head. Someone could get hurt. Um, He's speaking from I know personal experience would get him there. So it's a running joke between us. But I have to say, it's really resonating with me when you talk about generational uh, bonds about different subjects and about financial things. My parents were raised dirt poor and worked their way up into the middle class. And so I started life at a different level than my parents did, um, and married and have done well. So my children are at an even different level than I was. And I still find I'm still getting my courage up sometimes just to look at financial documents. When we
Sure.
have to do taxes, um, generally my first thought is, can I go somewhere else, like on a really great trip somewhere else so I don't have to look at these numbers? It's actually scary to me, and
It's
I'm
trauma. That's
getting
trauma.
better
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
getting better at it, but the numbers scare me. They don't seem realistic, which I don't know if that's common, but they don't seem realistic to me, and I don't really know. There's just so many assumptions when you're poor that you have about if you had anything, who you would be, and sometimes those are at play for me. I mean, is that common?
Oh, yeah. In everybody's head, right? That's like, that is, and that's part of what being trauma informed means is that my job is to respect that everybody has probably 45 of those exact stories going through their heads at all times. Some
Wow.
conflicting, some reinforcing each
Wow.
other, right? Like
Yeah.
that story that you have, that's, there were, if we're going to go down the space, that's your starting point right there. Um,
Yeah.
it's important to recognize like we have exceptionally brilliant brains that have the
Mhm.
ability to stress us out about nothing. Like, like I'm not saying taxes is nothing,
Yeah.
but like our brains, if something
Right.
has
The
the,
story I'm
yep,
isn't even helpful.
it's not helpful, but it is trying to help. It's that avoidance. If something has the potential to hurt us, we are
Yeah.
going to naturally avoid that. That is, it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Um, that is not a failing of your brain. That is just what it's
No.
like to have.
No, and I think I need to acknowledge myself for that. I'm just trying to protect me, but I feel like I also need to say to me, it's okay. I am safe in the space where there are finances, where financial information is at play. Um, and I mean, is that silly that I need to remind myself I
No,
am safe when financial? I don't think I'm the only woman thinking this listening to this podcast.
no, gosh, no. Not the only person. Yeah, pretty much everybody is kind of trying to talk themselves down all the time, and that has a limited success because it is, in a way, it is pushing back on that protective strategy, and
Yeah.
that is like it's denying that I need my protective strategy. It's saying you shouldn't
Mm,
need your protective strategy because you're safe. I know when I'm trying to manipulate myself. Thank you very much. So that's why the space there's nothing in the space framework or really anything that I do that is like that positive affirmation or that toxic positivity. Not saying that's what you're doing. That pushes back on our reality. So that
yeah.
protective strategy in my head is there for a reason. And if I try to push back on it, it's going to fight with me. Like it will
Yeah.
not, right? It might work today, might work this time, but it will reinforce the message that the only way that I can get this done is by forcing myself, pushing past this, right? That does
Yeah.
not reinforce the message that I can be trusted. So if your message to yourself is if a new story comes out that I can trust myself, way more
Hmm.
impactful than a yes, you are safe, probably. I don't know. But
Yeah.
like
I
we are
am.
safer than our little anxiety brains think we are. But try telling our brains that. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you're
but
in short, I mean, if you had to really sum up what a brain is, it is, and I'm not talking the essence of you and your personhood, but the brain part,
the meat part,
it is
yeah.
solely, yeah, the meat part is solely to keep you safe so the system remains operational, so your body keeps going, so you keep living. That's all you're doing. That's why you're generating so many fears. It's every possible problem that we could stop, that we could keep this body safe,
Safe.
right?
Yep. That's what our brains, especially the back of our brains. The front of our brains, our prefrontal cortex, this part, that is not interested in safety so much. That one is interested in processing and memory and speaking and language and communicating,
And
connection,
all the things.
and all the things. And sometimes they don't conflict with each other. And if those two parts of our brains are fighting, guess which part is going to win?
Yeah, I think I know. Well, I love this conversation. I love this conversation. I think that there will be women who are inspired, intrigued, and hungry to understand more. As a trauma-informed financial counselor or coach, excuse me, coach, not counselor, where can people find you?
So I'm going to make you guys a landing page just for your listeners. Let's do Your
Okay.
Worth Coach, YOURWORTHCOACH, all together, .com/butterfly. And
I
you
love
can,
it.
yeah, yeah, you can contact me right through there. I'll have two resources. I'll have the space worksheet for the story. I'll also have basically it's a little self-directed audit around financial enmeshment. I'll have that there.
I love that. I love that. It's beautiful. And the other thing, if anyone has any interest, you wrote a wonderful article for an online publication called 60andme.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll
And
put that on the
and
page for your listeners too.
okay. So she'll put it on the website. That would be fantastic. So, what a cool, inspiring, interesting way to think about this problem. It's a little bit unique to us and our generation, and just the way that modernity has served us over the decades, and living in this country certainly. I find myself very grateful, Hannah, to think that you are out on the West Coast in Oregon, in the Pacific Northwest, serving so many people and helping them find their center and the truth, and to navigate their stories and thus their lives with more integrity. And I just want to say, on behalf of our community, that we're rooting for you, Hannah. Wherever
Thank
you go,
you.
let us know, okay?
Thank you. You're
Wish you
wonderful.
much luck on your TED Talk. I think you're going to kill it, kid.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we appreciate you. I invite you to follow me wherever you stream your podcast, or on YouTube if you want to see the live pictures. We would love to have you join us. Thank you for being on this journey. And remember, I'm rooting for you. I'm so grateful you listened to this episode. I hope it was a real value to you. If there's a sister in your life who needs this message, please share it, just like women have done to lift each other up over the centuries and across cultures. Women lifting each other is so important. It's why I do this work. And to avoid FOMO and keep up leveling your own life, make sure you don't miss the next episode. You may be losing hormones, but your life has given you powerful perspective. And I believe you have something to give that no one else does, that the world needs. So remember, I'm rooting for you. Let's go.